Welcome to episode number 105 of Evolving with Corey Castle. I'm Corey Castle, and I'm joined today by Drew McManus of Satsang.
Yeah.
How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing really good, man. I had a really good day. I got some good training in today, so I'm feeling good, powerful, a little sore, but good.
So when you say training, what's the training you're talking about? Are you doing like weight training, or are you doing like MMA? BJJ?
Yeah, so I train in an MMA gym. I work out pretty much every day, 6 days a week, but MMA twice a week. But today was particularly good because I usually am just doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and other stuff if I have time. But today I actually went in early and I got a couple hours of boxing in, which is fun. I haven't done that in a while, and it kind of floating from it. I forgot how much I love it because I've just been so focused on grappling for the last few months.
So when you're on the road, when you're being in all those cities all the time,
mm-hmm.
What do you do for training? Do you find gyms and stuff that you, like for grappling?
Yeah, every once in a while, I try to hit an open mat a tour at least, like once every couple weeks. But really, man, I just maintain a pretty vigorous, I make myself exercise every day on tour. I usually, even if it sacrifices some sleep, I like to, if we have to leave at 11, I'll wake up at 9, no matter how late we get in, which is usually 3-ish most of the time. But yeah, I'll wake up, go to the hotel gym, do some sort of high-intensity interval training with weights, eat breakfast, just got really into taking cold showers. I'll take a warm shower and wash off, and then I do a blast of cold water.
How do you feel about black coffee?
About what?
Black coffee. Do you drink your coffee black?
Dude, so, yes, I drink, when I'm on the road. When I'm home, I do the bulletproof thing.
Okay.
Not their brand of coffee, but I mix coffee with coconut oil and ghee and blend it up. But on the road, I bring a little espresso thing, and I typically do cold brew or, black coffee.
So, forgive me, I hope this is making sense to you, but I really don't like to operate where it's very interviewy. It's very I don't want to do the same thing that everybody does. And I mean, you probably get asked the same questions a million times, and you have the answers in the barrel for the kind of questions that you're going to be asked, right?
Well, I mean, if I'm asked how I stay in shape on the road, that's always going to kind of be the same. But no, man, one of my favorite things to talk about, though, is for sure exercise and diet and coffee. Those are all things that I'm very, very fond of. How do you drink your coffee?
Mostly black. I mean, sometimes I'll spoil myself with some almond milk or something, but I mean, for the most part, black coffee.
Have you ever tried the bulletproof thing?
No.
Dude, okay. So you make a real strong batch.
Mm-hmm.
Like you use a French press, or what do you use? Classic pot?
Just have a pot, yeah.
Okay. So if you make it real strong, and then take your cup of coffee, pour it in a blender, 1 tablespoon of free-range butter. I like to use ghee. Mm-hmm. And then 1 tablespoon of coconut oil, and blend it up. It's a little maple syrup if you're feeling it. But it just makes this, it's really good for you because it's a bunch of, triglycerides that your body needs, and all those fats help your body deliver nutrients. But it tastes fucking phenomenal, too.
So, the kind of questions I think I want to ask you are, this is Evolving with Corey Castle, so I kind of want to get your story, sort of life lessons that came through that.
Sure.
So, what you have, do you have both parents? Do you have siblings?
Dude, it's kind of a crazy story. So, my mom and my biological father got divorced when I was well before I remember. I don't want to say it was 2, maybe even a little bit before I was 2. And then my mom remarried to a man that pretty much raised me, who I've always called my dad. And he had 2 girls and a boy that he had custody with. And then my dad also remarried, and his second wife had a daughter. And then I have one full biological brother named Aaron. Mm-hmm. And then my mom and her second husband, who raised me and my brother Aaron, they also had a kid together. So I have a half-brother named Chaz. And then my dad got divorced from his second marriage and married a lady with 2 kids. So, like, I have a whole bunch of siblings. But, yeah, I had a pretty interesting background growing up, dude. Because my real dad was a great dude, very religious, very, like, evangelical Christian, like, speak in tongues Christian.
Right.
But we moved to Iowa when I was in 2nd grade. Mm-hmm. So we would only see him 1 month during the summer and then, like, every other Christmas. Awesome dude, really badass guy, just sweetheart. I've never met anyone that didn't like him. But the dad that raised us was an alcoholic. And he beat the shit out of me and my brother Aaron pretty much every day for drill.
Just because he wanted
to. Like, I'm not really sure what it was. I think what it was that, it was how he was raised.
Right.
But I think he just had a temper that he didn't, like, for me, if one of my kids forgot to put an apple in their lunch, I might be like, man, I said this to you 4 times. Mm-hmm. Put an apple in your lunch.
Right.
Whereas, like, his reaction to that would be like, I'm going to pick you up by your throat and, like, throw you into a cabinet,
Yeah.
So I think his red line was a little different than most people's red line. Mm-hmm. But, he was alcoholic. Dude was a hustler, though. He sold advertisement. He's one of the most charming dudes you'd ever meet. But he sold.
In pro wrestling, we call that a good worker. So
yeah. So you're a pro wrestler?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's rad.
Okay, I thought we had talked about that through the manager guy, but it's okay. I mean, it's totally cool. Like normally, a lot of people within the business I'm from, where they're like baby. We call that baby facing. They show everybody that they're so nice, and then when they're with their family or the people who like know them the most, they're just kind of a piece of shit, like abusive. Just a salesman to how cool they are, and they're really not that cool.
Yeah, he's for sure. Yeah, I think there's for sure. As I got older, and really actually just the past couple of years, my wife is a clinical therapist, and studying narcissism and like really starting to understand what that is really gave me like crazy insight into him of just like, oh man, that was kind of his mode of operating was that he didn't ever do anything wrong. He cheated on my mom. I'm certain of it. He was a gambling addict as well. And he was just always involved in some shady shit, Like, we grew up in a neighborhood that was, it was a cul-de-sac of Section 8 houses. Mm. And then at the top of that cul-de-sac, for about a block both ways, was pretty low-income houses. But they were, 2 and 3 bedroom houses. They weren't super nice houses, but adjacent to that, just a few blocks, was like a very, I wouldn't say super upper middle class, but like, upper middle class for sure, like suburban. Mm-hmm. So we went to a school. We had my parents, because we're on this divider line, they could have sent us to Hoover High School, where we would have for sure been a minority, because Hoover High School was all black and Bosnian refugees, or Johnston, which was this very affluent suburb of Des Moines. So it was a really interesting thing, like I went to school with a lot of people that were very well off, and did have very good home lives, and we grew up poor and surrounded by other people that were poor, like, we did okay. You know, my mom, you know, she did a lot to keep us floating for sure. But, you know, it was weird because we kind of learned to put the face on too, I think, you know, of just like, I never wanted to out my dad, and I had a couple opportunities to when I was in elementary school and middle school. I had a couple counselors, you know, pretty much be like, dude, we pretty much know, you just have to tell us, you know, and then we can do something about it. And so, yeah, it was really interesting, to say the least. It required a lot of work, you know, and really, I just started identifying with other things. Like, we grew up wrestling, folk style in the fall, and then freestyle in the summers. Mm-hmm. Love folk style wrestling. And growing up in Iowa, we just got such amazing wrestling. Yeah. But about middle school, dude, I found skateboarding and punk rock. Yeah. And those two things really, like...
Did you like pro wrestling at all?
Dude, it's funny because I was actually... There was a time, I would say, like, fourth and fifth grade, dude, I was, like, obsessed. Like, I had the ring and the action figures, and that was all I would want Christmas was, like, the action figures. I had, like, Shawn Michaels, and the Triple H was, like, way into DX.
Okay, that's the era. Now I'm trying to picture... Because I'm trying to put together what era that is. So that's helping me get kind of an idea of what your age is. So
NWO, I was way into the Wolfpack.
Okay, yeah, okay. So you're about 30... Maybe
30. Good job.
Was I right?
Yep.
Man,
I turned 31 in like 10 days.
I speak pro wrestling so much. I do pro wrestling math. But,
I was into it for a short time. Yeah. You know, I got really into skateboarding, and I remember learning how to ollie in my basement. It was actually on my birthday. I don't remember how old I was, maybe 13. But both of my friends, I was allowed to have 2 friends come stay the night for my birthday. And they taught me how to ollie in the basement. And I was never an awesome skateboarder or anything. I think when I look back on it now, and it's funny, this summer I've been examining a lot of, like, I wasn't an excellent skateboarder, so, like, why did it have such an effect on me? The first time I heard the Rolling Stones was in a skate video. Mm-hmm. The first time I heard real hip-hop was in a skate video. The first time I heard Aretha Franklin was in a skate video. Like... It was just a culture, you know. It was like, it was how I found out about everything.
Do you know what skate videos I used to watch? CKY. I used to watch them like crazy. Yeah. I watched them. Like me and all my friends, we'd quote that stuff like all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Like nothing but
I still do with some of my friends.
Yeah, me too, with some of my friends.
Yeah.
We're like, you were drunk when you were pooping out her.
Stuff Stu's very stupid for a Kiki, wow.
Yeah, all the time.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So, yeah, man, so I kind of wanted to get into, like, almost going from that. I mean, I heard you say earlier, you were like, oh, people were a little bit more financially comfortable with better home lives. And, I mean, do you think that they were good? I mean, most people... It's in relative, you know what I mean? In relative to what you know. Like, everybody has their own angst and their own torture in some way. Like, those kids, like, I went to a school where I was the poorest kid, and everybody else was just these rich, upper middle-class suburban kids. And they all had nice clothes, and I was kind of this weird wrestler kid with a stupid shaved sides haircut, like Jeff Hardy. And...
nice.
And, you know, like, if I look at it now, all those people are pretty damaged, and they're probably unhappy with who they are and where their lives are.
Yeah, I think the one benefit that I had, that I think I was always kind of aware of, I just knew that my path wouldn't be traditional. Mm-hmm. I knew it really early on. I knew that I would never get suckered into a normal job. I knew I would never wear a tie, and I could look at so many of, like, people that I considered friends even. I could just look at them in the way that everything was unfolding and could just kind of tell that they were going to end up at a bank. or broking, or just some very white guy job that wasn't going to be fulfilling, and that the essence of their life was going to be to hurry up and marry and have kids, and then be like, oh shit, here I am. So and I think too, there's a lot that goes on in people's lives that we don't know about, especially. Maybe people aren't physically abused, but maybe their parents just don't talk to them at all. Like, I had a couple friends that were just like, my parents just don't really talk to me. Yeah. And I'm sure that comes with a whole plethora of side effects as well. I think for me, I just knew. I think the big difference between me and my brother in dealing with the physical abuse is I realized at a very early age it wasn't my fault. I never internalized any of it, really. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like a common theme with people that are abused is like that it's like, that there's something wrong with them, and that's why it's happening. Up in your worth. I didn't. I really was like, man, my dad is a fucking kook. Yeah. Like, I knew it, and I saw the way he interacted with other people, and he drove drunk with us in the car all the time. Like, I just knew he was a completely irrational human being. Like, I just think, I knew that my friends didn't have to deal with that, and it's just a whole... Yeah, and violence wasn't just in my home, it was in the neighborhood that we grew up in a lot, and my brother kind of turned himself into a tough guy, like the tough guy, that everyone was scared of, and I think back on some, like, defining moments that when I can tell... Looking back on it, like, that was probably where he made that decision of like, oh yeah, man, we're never going to be victims outside of our house, So it's kind of always around, and then being Aaron's little brother brought a lot of, like, looking over my shoulder a lot. So it's funny because I recently, last fall, my bass player and best friend Carl, I took him back to my old neighborhood, and we just had a day. I hadn't been back in 15 some years. And so I just drove around and was telling him stories and stuff like that. And towards the end of the day, he's like, man, I gotta be honest with you, like, this is some of the most fucked up shit I've ever heard. Like, I just can't even imagine having to, like, mitigate all of this shit all the time. Yeah, so I think that, everyone has different shit, but I think for me, there was, like, definitely some defining personality traits that came from, like, the constant threat of violence. So it's a weird thing. So what age did you get, like, into, like, being addicted and stuff? I know that I saw... when I... Sorry, go ahead. It was weird. For, like, the first half of high school, man, I didn't drink alcohol. My dad was an alcoholic. My real dad, my biological father, was an alcoholic, and he's been sober. He got sober when I was, like, 3. Right. So I always kind of was like, man, I figured I had that gene because my grandfather and both of my dad's uncles were alcoholics, and both my great-uncles died from it, and my grandfather eventually died from it as well. But I got busted with... I don't even know, dude. I can't even imagine that it weighed anything. Like, I got caught smoking pot my freshman year, and they, like, combed the carpet of this car, and they had this big evidence bag, and it took up, the smallest minute thing. But long story short, I got put on probation for 6 months. So I was drug tested twice a week. Yeah, dude. And that was when I started. I got put on probation when I was 14. I was on for, like, a year, and I got drug tested every Wednesday. Yeah, wild. So crazy. Like, just being wrong place, wrong time. Stupid decisions of people to hang with. Really. But yeah, and it's wild how it I don't know, like, I remember being in the principal's office, too, and being like, I don't drink. I don't cause trouble. Like, I don't do any of this shit. Like... It was baffling to me that I was in trouble for it. I had straight A's. I was an athlete. I was baffled that I was in trouble by it. But it was about 16 was when I started drinking, man. And when I started drinking, everything else really... No, I was like 14, 15. Yeah. And I just loved it.
Yeah.
Pretty much straight away. And then 16, I quit going to high school. I was supposed to be finishing it at the local community college, but I didn't go most of the time. I usually just went and skateboarded. And my mom moved to Florida, so I stayed with my dad for a while. And then one morning, he kicked the shit out of me real, real bad. And I packed up a bunch of stuff down in my room, and I waited for him to fall asleep, and then I left. And I ended up living with a good friend of mine and his family for a while.
Right.
And during that time, I drank, but not a bunch. When it really was when I quit going to school. When I was like kind of on my own before I went to Chicago. And then when I went to Chicago, man, I moved in with my sister. Dude, and I drank. It was crazy. Like, I could literally drink a bottle of 10 high bourbon by myself. I was 17, 18 years old.
That gives me heartburn thinking about it.
Oh, it's so gross. Yeah, terrible whiskey.
Yeah.
Not even good.
So.
But then I think, like, it's crazy, and we can talk more about what happened when I was in Chicago, but when I finally did go to rehab, I remember the intake nurse was crying, and she was tearing up when they were looking at my, the enzyme count in my liver.
Yeah.
She said that I was teeter-tottering on psoriasis, like I was just like in the early stages of it. So had I not gone when I went, I don't know what would have happened, But yeah, I mean, I would drink, dude, we would put down 10, 12 beers like before we went out,
So you went to rehab, right?
Yeah.
Did you, like, when you left rehab, were you, like, gonna be, like, in the program then at that point? Like, what had kept you on the sober? You know what I mean? What kept you there?
So I got out of rehab, and I had convinced myself that I went to rehab for cocaine, that I didn't go for alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And I started drinking again. And over the next year or so, it pretty much completely unraveled. But yeah, man, I did the AA thing for a couple months. I think when I got out of rehab, a month or two, and would try to go back to it every now and again. There was just something about it, man. I think it's a phenomenal program for 99% of the population. I think the 12 steps are genius, and I think that every single person in the world, addict or not, should do them, and should do them in order. And if they feel stagnant in their life, should do them again. There was something about it that didn't work for me, man.
Well, I mean,
there seemed to be a lot of reminiscing about how bad things used to be, rather than a lot of constructive talk about how life in general could be better. Like, I just knew that I didn't want the fact that I had an alcohol problem to be at the forefront of my identity and personality, and it seemed like a lot of the people in AA did, because they went to meetings every single day and had been sober 20 years, but still went to AA every day, and I knew I didn't want that. I didn't want to do that. So really what it was my wife, was huge, and then I lived, once I got sober, I started skiing a lot and spending a lot more time in the mountains. Rock climbing, ice climbing, like the outdoor thing kind of became my church. Yeah. And it really is, really, truly, honestly, is what kept me sober.
Okay, so the outdoor life and just like Earth sort of brought you to like this holy experience, I guess.
Yeah, I think early on it just kept me busy, and it gave me something to focus my energy on. I kind of always had an affinity for getting good at things that don't translate to anything other than being good at them. Like skateboarding's one of those things. Like, why the fuck you want to be good at skateboarding? Like, because it's fun.
Yeah, like what's the payoff? Like, right? I feel very similar in like, I mean, I like stand-up comedy. It's not getting me anywhere really, and like pro wrestling, it's not really getting me anywhere. But like, it's just the things that I like doing. So
yeah, and I think that's important. I think a lot of people, when they transfer from early adulthood into full-on adulthood, they're like, oh, well, I got to get rid of all the things that I'm passionate about and really hunker down on one thing that isn't really entertaining or doesn't stoke my spirit fire at all. Like that's what growing up is to some people. And I think some of the happiest dudes I know are like in their late 40s and still skate every single day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that's a thing I constantly say about feeding your spirit. You gotta really. It's part of like that ikigai, that sort of like reason for being, sort of.
Yeah.
The reason for waking up in the morning.
Yeah, it's important to have, man. It's important to have things that, for me, I paint, and I make music, and for the last year I've been fighting, and I see a lot of beauty in it. I want the things that I do in my life to be beautiful.
Do you think that you'd ever become a fan of pro wrestling again?
I don't. It's funny, man. A couple of the guys that I train with are like super fans, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're way into it.
But like you were into it like at the coolest time it was to be a pro wrestling fan. With the things and the suck it and the Wolfpack.
Yeah.
Like that was the cool that like nowadays the in-ring product and the evolution of what the business is, like as far as the showmanship is like so evolved from what it was, back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a cool time to be a fan. And that was
it was rad.
It's a second boom coming on right now. So I kind of wanted to get with you on the idea of like plant medicine and stuff like that. Did you ever have those experiences?
Yeah, actually, there's a pretty potent story there. So a huge part of like my sobriety was I would go, 4-6 months at a time, and then I'd relapse, and then I'd get, and then I'd be like, all right, just get back on the bike, and I'd go, and then 4 to 6 months, and I was listening to this Terrence McKenna lecture one day when I was cleaning my little basement apartment.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of going off on a little diatribe just about, the hero dose and what that had the potential to do. And like at that time, a friend of mine who owed me $40, I think, for a piece of climbing equipment, like I think a quick draw or something like that. I don't remember what it was. Climbing equipment.
Oh, okay.
I think I'd given him a cam or a quick draw or something. But he hit me up and was like, "Hey man, I just acquired these psilocybin mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Could I give you those instead?" And I was like, "Well, the timing of it was really weird because, like I said, I was listening to this Terrence McKenna lecture, and like right as he was getting into that discussion, I got that text." I was like, "Shit, why not?"
That's some synchronicity, some crazy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
totally. And I did it. I did it by myself. It wasn't like anything. I'm a very experienced drug user. In my youth. Used to use psychedelics with reckless abandon.
Right.
But this particular one wasn't really like anything. Kind of hard to describe. Really scary. I would say at the core of it was just a whole lot of really being scared. Pretty immobile. Thought I was dying. Was 100% certain I was dying.
Right.
was like going down thought wormholes of like seeing my dad again as an adult, and relived a lot of the fear of like that I felt when I was a kid, and it felt as real as it did when I was a kid. Kind of like really, I guess, just a purge, man. But I like went through all of the things, man. Like so heavy, so scary, so hard. Like I have a knot in my stomach just thinking about it. It wasn't an enjoyable experience by any means. And then at the tail end of it, when I kind of out of that whirlwind, I just remember being just 100% certain of I'm going to go somewhere in the East. I'm going to be a good parent. My wife has 3 kids that I've been from 9 years now.
I'm sorry.
Their dad isn't in the pic.
I kind of missed what the last thing you just said was. Can you repeat that?
So my wife has 3 kids that I've been with for almost 9 years.
Okay.
And they were very young when we first met. But that night I was like, I'm 100% certain that I'm going to be their father. Right. And this is the role that I'm going to take on. And I think that was when I was like, I'm going to do something with myself. I'm not going to continue to just kind of drag my feet about. I'm going to figure out what I want to do. Soon after, I got a job opportunity to go survey in the desert outside Moab, where we worked 7 days a week for 2 months. And I made a whole grip of money.
Outside of where?
Moab, Utah.
Okay.
So beautiful, 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 but very rigorous work, and the environment down fucked, man. It's like I was there in the fall, and it's like 100 degrees during the day, and then the minute the sun goes down, it's freezing. So like we would wake up at 5 in the morning to go to work, and it would be freezing outside, and by like 11 o'clock in the morning, it was 90 degrees. By noon, it was over 100. Crazy. So I did that, and then I went to Nepal. I took the money that I made off, and I went to Nepal, and God bless my wife for letting me go. And that was really where I wrote most of the story of you there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know most of them were songs when I was writing them.
Right.
I didn't really know what they were, but I was writing a lot because where I lived in the Himalaya, there was very rarely power. There definitely was not internet. There was not cell phone service. I think I got to call my wife 6 times the whole time I was there, which was a little over a month. And it was weird, man. I kind of just was examining it for the first time. And I did know I wanted music to happen. I didn't know how or what that looked like, so I was just like, I'm just going to play. I didn't have a guitar that whole trip either, so that was wild.
Yeah.
Because I just had my backpack. I just had a pack with all my stuff in it, like the sleeping bag and the clothes and a journal. I didn't have a guitar, so I was just writing a lot, but I think that was where I was like, it became really apparent to me when I was at they cremate all the bodies in Kathmandu at this place called Pashupudana. It's wild. There's these like little outlets that go into the river, and they put bodies in there and like stack wood around them Lincoln log style, and then they do this whole ceremony and they set the bodies on fire. They do this every day.
Wow.
It was there that I just kind of started thinking about like, man, what is my mark? Right. What's my mark going to be? What am I going to do before I get burned?
What a journey just to bring you to that point, and to think like that's just the start. That's just the start of.
That's just the start of the story, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was really in the Himalaya was when I was just walking through my stuff, because all you're doing is walking. Like when people are like, "Oh, I'm going to go backpack in the Himalaya," it means I'm going to walk 5 to 10 miles every day with a backpack on and go from village to village, because that's how far the villages are spaced out. Mm-hmm. So the trip is walk. And you pretty much realize that on the second or third day of like, oh yeah, these destinations aren't anything, because every village is the same. There's a monastery, and then there's like a tea lodge where you stay. That's it. There's not much else happening.
Did you say stairways?
Yeah, so everything in Nepal going uphill because of, I think, all of good. So the kind of the start of the trek, I forget the name of the place that everything flies into, and then everything gets walked to where it's going. Everything.
Right.
Like if you live in a village that's 25 miles from this place and you need plywood to finish your house, then you are taking a week and a half trip to go up 2 pieces of plywood and bringing it all the way back.
Whoa.
So they've carved anything that's uphill has steps carved in it, usually just like carved out and then placed rock in. So yeah, man, you're just walking and you're surrounded by the tallest mountains on the planet that make you feel like an ant's leg. Like everything is so big and so in your face and so unfathomable, dude. It's just so big. Everything is so big. The people over there, given their circumstance, are still so sweet, very content.
Well, they don't have the internet to tell them that they're doing everything wrong.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, for sure. I mean, I learned a lot about myself. I did a lot of things I didn't think I could do. I was a vegetarian at the time, so I think I weighed 110 pounds when I fucking came home, dude. I looked so bad. It was crazy, man. It was crazy. It was crazy to go live that and then just come right back to the world.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, I'm thinking this like I think about that sort of stuff. Like just this past weekend, I had journeyed with some psilocybin mushrooms, and I was like, how am I going to go from this right back into my everyday world and sort of remember to live this way, remember to feel this way, remember to think this way, and remember to sit with what I am, not just who I am, but what I am, and things like that would really twist me up, and it's got to be a very, a way more extreme situation than that to be all that way away in that lifestyle without access to, your loved ones or your comfort zones.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, and then you just kind of slam back into it. You realize pretty quickly that most people are fucking spoiled, and they have no idea that they're spoiled. I got a shower when I was in the Himalaya. I got a shower 3 times. One of them was warm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, would you have thought that you're into cold showers nowadays?
Yeah, right? Yeah. It's a crazy thing, man. I think that there's a level of contentment that I think is only measurable. The measure of it is completely dependent on exposure. If you don't know a bunch of people that take hot showers all the time, you probably don't think about it very often. Mm-hmm. I remember I had a really funny moment over there. I was describing a grocery store to one of the Sherpas, and it was just making my brain explode, man. He was just like, meat, cheese, bread, milk, in the same place, and everything is refrigerated. Like, it was fucking him up, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I think, I think it just shifted my perspective on pretty much everything that I thought I knew. I kind of went through a phase of, being angry. Just when you see the things that people throw themselves into with their time, and the things that they chase, and the things they want. And we're all guilty of it. I'm 5 years out from Paul, and I'm right back like all the other Americans,
Well, I mean, I think I say this a lot, and I really feel it a lot, and I have to remind myself pretty often that all the outrage bait that we bite into is just the same exact type of things, just recycled into something else now. Like people would get mad, oh, you voted for Dukakis, don't talk to me anymore. It's the same shit, it's the same shit 20, 30, 40 years later, you know what I mean? Like, oh, what about JFK? Blah, blah, you know what I mean? It's just this politics, and it's this separation, it's this dualism that we sort of need to prioritize. And I feel that all the time about when people complain about stuff so often.
Yeah, I think there's a level too of like, people get a lot of identity from their politics, they get a lot of identity from their beliefs. And it isn't really in human nature to want to surround yourself with people that don't believe the same things as you. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of 8,572 beautiful things about jiu-jitsu and fighting, is that you find this common ground with people. Dude, I have relationships with people that I know couldn't be further away from my political beliefs. Mm. And we love each other. And we bleed together, and we sweat together. And the things that we do have in common are, we're trying to get better, we care about our health, and family seems to be a congruent theme with most people that I meet that train.
My friend Andrew, he just moved to Denver, like, I don't know, maybe less than a year ago, and like he's this MMA. He trains Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I'd always be like, how do you have bare feet near you all the time? That's gross to me. And he's like, you just get used to it. You could ask the same question to me about pro wrestling. Oh, why are you going to walk around in tights with all this oil on you? I'm like, yeah, it's just what you do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's something special that happens. Our culture doesn't value real warriors the way that we used to. We're pretty far removed from violence. We've kind of lost our relationship with it. Mm-hmm. Pretty much every primitive culture had some sort of game or martial art. Whether it's like Ethiopian stick fighting, or there was a lot of camaraderie in it. Mm. And when you you look at early tribes in the Middle East, which is really the earliest roots of wrestling and grappling. Right. It was a huge part of the bonding between males, man. Something happens when you sweat and bleed and learn and slam into the same dudes over years.
Well, you're common. You have that in common. Like, it's like you're not like so much out to prove yourself to somebody. You're out to prove yourself to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing about fighting that I really like is that it's pretty honest. Right. Not pretty honest, it's absolutely honest. If I'm grappling with someone or boxing with someone or whatever the fuck, if they're better than me, we're going to know pretty fast. If I'm better than them, we're going to know pretty fast, and there's no really debating it. Mm-hmm. Essentially what the game of jiu-jitsu is you're playing I killed you. Mm-hmm. It's I'm going to choke you, and you're going to tap, and then then we'll restart. And really what that game is okay, well, if this was real life, you would have just died, and that's what that tap means. Or if this was real life, your arm would have just broke, and you're acknowledging that, so you're tapping. And when you're learning jiu-jitsu, you tap all of the time. Right. There's also an ego mitigation that starts to happen with you that isn't happening with every other person that's walking around. Mm-hmm. The idea of submitting on a regular basis and having to most people emotionally can't handle that. That's why we lose most people that start training jiu-jitsu. They can't stand that a girl half their size can choke them. They don't like the fact that they're getting their ass kicked for the majority of learning of jiu-jitsu. That's what it is you're learning how to not get beat up.
This is not the same exact thing, but similar. In pro wrestling, it's fake. So you're losing on purpose. And people were like, I don't know how you can do that. I'm like, because it's the show. Like, it's really not about me. It's about... Yeah,
that's wild.
Right. But what I wanted to ask, though, for real, going back a little bit, you were talking about those ceremonies, the cremations.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to sort of get you to unbox a little bit, like, where your brain goes there. And, like, I understand, like, you were talking about, like, where do I fill the space before I'm burnt? But, I mean, you've lost people. You've lost people.
Yeah, I've lost a lot of people.
You've lost people in your life, and you know we're sandcastles that the tide's coming for. What do you believe happens after you leave this vessel?
I don't know. I've never been. I don't know. I've had a handful of experiences that lead me to believe that there's more.
Mm.
And that I think that we go back to the same place that we came from. I very much believe in the concept of the soul. I don't know. I think my wife and my sister both really recently been talking about karma and returning. And when we meet people that are unfavorable, that they're just at a different part in their cycle. Like maybe something that you see other people struggling with that you don't struggle with is because this is your 850th time here and they're only on number 200.
Right.
That's an interesting concept to me. For me, I don't know. I know that I pray a lot. I know that I definitely believe that there's a higher power. I don't know what that is.
Well, that's kind of, I wanted to sort of go back a little bit on that, where you were saying the speaking in tongues and the evangelical Christian, all that, like, from your youth, from very young.
Yeah.
Like, did you look at that and, like, believe even more? Was that the effect that it had on you?
When I was young, I did. Yeah, pre using mind altering substances, I absolutely did. Yeah.
Right.
It was a really interesting the dichotomy of Christianity in my life, because my real dad and his wife went to like Jesus camp style churches, like fucking crazy, man. And then my dad that raised me, we went to a Catholic church. And boy, was he just like the quintessential Catholic, he would just do terrible, terrible shit all week, but
he'd confess on Sunday.
He'd make it to church every Sunday. So I kind of always had a really interesting relationship, and I kind of shunned away from all of it, for a time, especially when I was in the throes of addiction. I pretty much was like, none of this matters. It's all fucking irrelevant. If I die, what does it even matter? Like, I'm not anything to anybody. I'm just another human, and the people, if I die, the people that do care about me will get over it. They will move on with their lives, and then they will die, and then I'll be forgotten. So it doesn't matter.
Right. Well, it's funny, man. I made this documentary a couple years ago where, Macho Man Randy Savage?
Yep.
His brother was in this, and he was in the documentary, and he talked about, like, wrestlers from, like, an era before the stuff was really documented. And he'd be like, does this name mean anything to you? And he'd go, oh, not really. fame is fleeting. Life is fleeting. I don't even know if he said that, but that's the message I took from it. Like, what means so much now, and like the crazy advancements in the world and what technology is. We have magic boxes in our hands that give us every little bit of information we ever want. You don't have to think
Trips me out every day. Yeah.
You don't really have to think anymore. Like, if you're wondering
we're just interfacing with an ever-evolving artificial intelligence that's getting smarter by the day.
Right.
Yeah, it's wild.
I
think about that often, like for me, even when I'm real tired on the road, man, I can get to places where I'm like, what am I even doing this for? Mm-hmm. And then the stories that people tell us, it shows the emails that I get and the Facebook messages that I get from people. It's crazy, man. What? I didn't ever think I would do anything with my life that would affect other people's lives in a way that could help them get off heroin or keep them from committing suicide or something like that. And that means a lot to me because I think it's easy to go down the unraveling of everyone's going to be forgotten, blah blah blah, But in the immediate chunk of time, if a man doesn't kill himself and then he's there for his kids, and those kids become healthy adults that then raise healthy kids, and then those kids become healthy adults and raise healthy kids.
7 generations.
If all of that can be traced back to this dude being like, man, I'm going to not shoot myself in the dome today, that's solid work, man. It's work that means something.
I know this is it's not. I don't want to make it about me. I get what you're feeling like when you say that that you'll get those messages and they mean so much to you. I mean, about 7 years ago, I had this brain surgery, and after brain surgery, about 13 months later, I returned to wrestling.
Oh wow!
And this woman hit me up recently. And she told me that she got in an accident where she lost all the meat on her legs. And she was told she would never walk again. And she hit me up and was like, hey, I saw, after they told me I'd never walk again, I saw what you had went through years before. And I said, if Corey could do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get up and I'm going to, like, if nothing else, what fascinates me the very most is some sort of being inspirational, being a resource, being some sort of archetype that inspires in any way.
Yeah, and you never know where someone's at, man. That, like, someone could be like on the verge of like giving up hope on humanity and see you help someone unload their fucking groceries and be like, man, I needed that. Mm-hmm. We don't really know, Like, I think that's why it's so important to walk in a good way, because you don't know who's watching, and you don't know that, like, the vibe that I get is that you were like, yeah, this is just something I must do. This is my passion. So brain surgery, not brain surgery, I'm getting back at it. Right. And it's interesting, like, I'm not ever writing much the same way. I'm not ever writing songs with the idea of like, oh, this is really going to help someone make it through this. I'm just writing it. And I think that's what's kind of the most fascinating and beautiful part of the human experience, is how we kind of bump into each other and collide and interface with each other. It's a wild thing. It's a really, really wild thing. And whether it's wrestling or fighting, or music or painting, like, there's just all these different things that hit people in a different way than just telling them, you're going to be able to walk again. I know they told you won't, but you're going to do it. It's sometimes it takes something abstract and yeah, I don't know the right verbiage for it. Something separate.
Well, it's like, it's tough sometimes to then think about that. Think about that little thing when you never knew who was listening or you never knew who was watching, who saw you do a thing that changed their perspective, and then you think about any time you've ever had any regrets in your life. then maybe if you regretted that and that didn't happen, then this wouldn't have happened, and that wouldn't have happened, and that wouldn't have happened, and you wouldn't have changed somebody's life this way or that way. That's
Man, I think that is the most important part of the story of Nepal. Was the notion that perhaps everything that I had been through with my childhood, friends overdosing, friends going to prison, my brother going to prison, all of these things that, like, maybe they didn't happen to me, but they were happening for me so I could become a person of merit and someone that had been through enough shit and sifted through it and figured out how to take some sort of leadership role on. Nepal was really the first place that just the basic notion that maybe it was all. That's why I named the record "The Story of You." Just like, and I referenced scars the whole time, was it was just like, man, maybe all of this is just like actually this really fucking brutally beautiful construct that's turning me into the man that I'm meant to be. That had I not been abused as a child, had I not been through everything that I've been with my brother, had I not lost the people that I lost, I wouldn't have what I have. I wouldn't have the tools to be who I am today.
Yeah.
So I kind of, in this weird, twisted way, began to become very grateful for all of the brutal shit that I had endured.
Right. I mean, the journey wouldn't have been as you wouldn't have as much to take away from it had you not experienced that. Like I always say, and I probably say it too often, but experience is the best teacher. You're gonna mess up, but that's gonna teach you more than getting it right every time.
I think that's again, I think jiu-jitsu is a good pillar for that. For me, it's a good reminder of that. Of you can only do the wrong thing so many times while it hurts before you're like, oh man, I got to figure out the right way to do this.
So, with that,
I think that too, of like all the people that I've admired, that I look to as that, like as pillars of people that I would want to be like, have some crazy story too, you know?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that one. Like, and I mean, I'm seeing that through you and the fact that like you're creating this beautiful art and getting these messages out there. Being somebody who came from undesirable past or not a healthy home life, and I mean, everybody's got somebody that they can kind of look to as an inspiration, but. I think the key is finding them. Yeah,
I had an art teacher that was a huge mentor to me in high school. He was the first one that kind of gave me permission to be an artist. He kind of did it at a dangerous time in my life. And actually, the intro to the next record is a snippet from an interview that was done with him. Yeah, it's interesting how people can teach on accident.
Could.
How did you hear about the band? How did this whole thing come about?
I discovered you on Spotify, and then I followed you on Instagram, and have been pretty fascinated with listening to your music, and figured I'd reach out. I mean, at this point, honestly, man, the reason I'm doing this podcast, for the most part, is because there's life lessons to learn from any conversation that you have with a genuine person. And I think sincerity is so... It's what really fuels my fire, I just love I call it evolving with Corey Castle because every time I'm talking to somebody and I'm hearing their life lesson, it's helping me grow a little bit and become a little bit better.
Yes, same.
So, I'm not saying with Corey Castle because I'm the host of the show, but it's like I'm getting better, at least working on getting better and doing work. Yeah. What I want to do is I know that the more and more this goes. So let's say this is 105. So when I started, I mean, to now, I believe that I'm a lot clearer in what I want and who I am, and I just feel like while this is going on, I'm 34. I don't have any kids, but maybe one day I'll have a kid. Maybe one day I'll have kids, and then one day they'll get old enough to the point where they're gonna want to know what their dad was like, and they can get. This is full vulnerability. This is me, 100% unfiltered. I'm not trying to be anybody I'm not. Like, I was hosting. I do host a pro wrestling podcast with my friends, and it's a lot of like pro wrestling talk, and it's not really me as much. So
yeah.
At the end of every episode, I feel like I really just wanted more stuff to like. I wanted to talk about who I am more, and then I was like, let me get my own sort of outlet, and I could talk to people who fascinate me. And honestly, that's what I've been doing. Because if you fascinate me, you can help me become a better me. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah.
And that sort of wanted me. What is the words I'm trying to say? That sort of made me want to ask you the next thing, being like, if you're how old are your kids?
So I have my oldest stepson is 18. He graduates this year. And then Coleman is 14 and he's a freshman. And then Chloe is in 7th grade and is 12. And then I have a brand new baby boy named Malachi that is 6 months old.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, like, if, let's say Malachi is 19, 20 years old, and he wants to know the type of person that his father is, and he comes across podcasts. Maybe that's not even a thing anymore. Maybe that's like 8 tracks to them.
Yeah.
But say he comes across this audio and wants to sort of get an idea of what his father's like, and maybe has a message for you, or you have a message for him. What kind of things would you say to 19-year-old Malachi who wants to listen to what his dad's like on a podcast?
Oh, man. I think advice, for anyone is that hard work and dedication trumps everything. That's like the biggest thing that I've learned, actually, literally right before coming up here to do this. My wife and I were debating the line between obsession and dedication.
Wow.
She goes, you say dedicated, we say obsessed. That hard work and dedication is crucial. And recently, man, I feel like I'm just learning to be soft. I don't really know how to do that. And it's interesting because in the music I feel like I'm really soft, but I'm not a very soft person. I'm pretty rigid. The people that I draw a lot of inspiration from are people like Jocko and C.T. Fletcher, guys like that.
I actually had his workout buddy on my podcast.
Yeah.
His workout buddy,
really?
Big J. Yeah, Big J was on my podcast like a year ago. Big J, Extreme Fitness, almost a year ago. Yeah, he's a great guy, man. This is also another part I really love about having this is like I get to become friends with people. Like we get to have real conversations. Yeah. Like this is the longest that I talk to most people on a daily. I don't talk to many people this often for this long.
Right.
So being able to have these kind of conversations makes me pretty comfortable with who I am, as compared to me 2 years ago, who was still a little confused about it.
Yeah. It's hard, man. It's hard to know, there's a song on the new record that is like that I actually wrote before I knew Malachi was coming, that I wrote for my other 3 kids. That's like that. That's the premise of the song is like, here's what I got for you. Mm-hmm. It's Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really excited about that song because it's that. It is a 4-minute answer to your question, but it's really pretty. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much, man. I think that there's, I didn't really have any escorts through a lot of really tough shit early on, like my first heartbreak. That's just one that's so hard to navigate. You're just like, the world is ending. I'm never going to be over this person. I'm never going to make it through this experience.
That's like...
Yeah, I think the big one is that it all heals. It all heals if you hold space for it to heal.
Well, a thing I say a lot, and you can use this too, in your future conversations that you have. The timeline between life and death, let's say, is 100 years. Let's say you have a 2-year relationship that ends horribly. 2 years out of 100 years, that's a blip.
2%. That's 2%, yeah.
It's just a tiny blip, and you're gonna get through it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's so hard though, when you're in it. It's so hard when you're in it, man.
Yeah.
And that's a big one that I don't look forward to my kids having their first heartbreak, but I look forward to getting to be there for them when they do. Because I didn't have anyone to help me navigate that one, man. I just drank through them.
Well, that hopefully not the road they go down for that.
No, I don't think it will be. They got a great mom, and a straight shooting dad. At the very least, a shoot it straight.
So, this is a question I recently started asking people in these conversations on the podcast. As I say, let's say in your travels you run across a man who says he's you from like 20 years in the future.
Ooh.
What 3 things do you say to this person?
Did I do a good job with my kids? Did my kids turn out okay? Am I still with my wife? Did I get my black belt? Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be the first. Those would be the 3.
When I was asked the question, I only had one thing to say, and that was, "Let me see your time machine."
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the other one is the other one I had in my head was like, "How's the band? How's that going?" I think. I'm going to do it for as long as I can. There's just no telling. I'll go as long as people are listening. Mm-hmm. As long as people are listening. We're at a really interesting time right now, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The band.
You got a new album coming out? Is that?
Yeah, next March. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually getting ready to release a little documentary series myself this winter. And then we'll start releasing singles from the new record and the pre-order and that whole thing. But what's really interesting, man, is I had 1 year of touring nonstop, playing for nobody. And then I had a year of playing with all of my heroes and becoming friends with all of them.
Yeah, I've seen that you post stuff with Dustin Thomas on Instagram, and I've seen him twice, I believe. Seen Nako probably 4 times. Seen that band.
Yeah, I think, for me, Fronty and Trevor and...
I saw Trevor also with Dustin last year.
Yeah. Trevor is... Oh, man. Do a whole podcast on just how much I love that dude. He really is probably, I would say, my closest friend in the industry. He's just, he's always available. We have a really funny relationship, ripping on each other.
Good.
He's just my bro. Cool. And then Fronty took us out for 3 tours last year.
Wow.
And, there's a lot of acts that get to do that. They go do the opening thing for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year we went out on our own. We went back to play all of our own shows to see how it would go.
I recently had Ray Zaragoza on the podcast.
Yeah, didn't she just do that Dispatch Knockout tour?
Yes, and I just had her on here, and that was cool. I'm curious to see where she's going to be at next year.
Yeah. So here's the thing that's crazy, man. Is like one of the artists that you named is there's this kind of proving ground. Is you go back out and you see how you do.
Yeah.
And we sold out over 3/4 of our shows this summer on our own.
Wow.
A lot of those shows didn't even have openers. And we played festivals where we had the entire festival singing our songs during our set. And one of the festivals was an EDM festival, and we were like... our expectations were here because we were just like, who the fuck? We don't know if anyone's heard of us here.
Right.
And it was one of the best sets of the summer, most high energy set by far.
Do you know who I just discovered? Do what I like? I'm not really a huge EDM guy, but I recently discovered a Tribe Called Red. Have you heard of them?
Oh yeah, man. I listen to that when I work out sometimes. That shit's rock.
Yeah, dude. I'm really into them. They're big wrestling fans, so.
No shit.
Yeah.
No shit. That's
so like
awesome.
their one like album is called like one of the songs is called Suplex, and the other one's like the People's Champ, and they have like a little 8-bit headdress, little pro wrestler with a like Wahoo McDaniel sort of headdress, and I was like, oh wow, that's awesome. So
that's cool.
I'm working on one of the guys who runs this company with me in Hoboken, New Jersey. He like runs nightclubs, so he knows their manager, working on like connecting those resources. And they're about to come to Philly, I think next month, maybe this month.
Nice.
So yeah, dude, that brings me to next time you come to Philly, dude, let's hang out.
Yeah, for sure. We were actually gonna come not that long. Not that long ago, we were looking at coming through, but the offer didn't just didn't work out. All that being said, we will for sure, at the very least, be through Philly in the near future. We did really well, man, in the East Coast this year. Really well in the Midwest. Okay, in the East Coast, I guess. Would be down to check out Philly for sure. Yeah, we've just been surprised. I said all that to say, we've been surprised because you never know what's going to happen when you go out on your own. And we went out on our own, and it went well. And hopefully it keeps going well. I can't imagine it's going to get any worse.
Do you have any experience with ayahuasca?
No, man. It's come up actually a lot. I've been invited to a lot of circles, and it just hasn't worked out.
Well, hit me up when you come to Philly.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just something, we'll figure something out. But the other question I kind of want, not really question, but it's sort of how I wrap things up, and I do it every time. So let's say from now on, this podcast, I just gave it to you. It's yours now. Okay? So it's no longer Evolving with Corey Castle. It's Drew McManus, Evolving with Drew McManus. You take this podcast from now on, and you have these conversations with whoever you want. But this is your first episode. If you're going to do like a Jerry Springer's final thought as a wrap-up to what this conversation is and what to take away from it, what would that wrap-up be?
Learn to love your story. The messy bits are the part that make it interesting and likely are what make you who you are. Yeah, and don't be scared to own it. You know, life's too short to be self-conscious.
This is good.
Yep.
It's good. Yeah, man. Like to get in the ring and shit, and we'll we'll go.
Dude, I'd love to see what it's about at the very least.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe next time we're coming through, maybe if we have a free day, we'll just come hang in Philly for a day.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, you got my number now. Just text me, whatever. Dude, I really, really appreciate you hanging with me. I know, I mean, what is it? I don't even know. What is it, Tuesday? What a random day. But
Yeah.
I appreciate you giving me this time. And I'm glad
Yeah,
that, you know, that we kind of got this relationship out of it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, totally.
I'd like for us to be friends now. So,
Yeah, you got a deal.
all right. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, well, be in touch. We'll talk soon.
Any other, like, plugs or anything else you want to put over?
No, that's good, man. Let me know when it goes live, and I will we'll share it up.
Yeah, really going live in probably 10 minutes. I'll put it up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so,
Nice.
yeah, dude, I'll shoot you a text in probably a couple minutes, and we'll figure it all out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, bro. You have a good one. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Drew. Talk to you later, man.
Yeah.
Bye. All right, so that was Drew McManus of Satsang. Episode number 105. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, please go back and listen to the 104 other episodes that there are. I've had a lot of fun on this episode, as do I have a lot of fun on the other episodes. You know, if you're interested in finding out who I am and that sort of stuff, if you want to hear other conversations with Todd Glass, other conversations with Johnny Pemberton, Mike Kaplan, Mark Norman, Matt McCarthy, a lot of comedians have been on, some pro wrestlers, some fitness people. You know, if you're ever having anything going on, you need to speak to somebody, you need to really kind of have a judgment-free conversation with anybody, please don't hesitate to try to reach out to me. I'm not hard to get a hold of. Thanks so much for listening. If this is your first time listening, please subscribe. You know, keep up to date with what's going on. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Laughable, wherever you know podcasts are found. Give it a like and share it if you want to. All right. Stay sincere, everybody, and keep evolving.